If Wu Zetian mastered the game by playing within the rules, and Empress Koken tried to tear the rules apart, then Catherine the Great started from scratch. She was born a poor princess in a minor German principality, practically holding a hand of zero-value cards. Yet with a textbook-level coup, she eliminated her own husband, seized control of the largest empire in the world at the time, Russia, and ruled it for 34 years. Today, we're going to look at how this grandmother of Europe parachuted into a foreign land and, with extreme rationality and an iron hand, carried out a shocking blitz for the throne. In 1729, Catherine was born in Prussia, in the tiny state of Anhalt-Zerbst. The name sounds grand, but in reality, it was so small, you'd need a magnifying glass to find it on a map. Back then, she was known as Princess Sophia. In 18th century Europe, princesses from small states were essentially fragile assets in great power politics. Their sole purpose was marriage alliances packaged and sent off like gifts to distant lands to bear heirs for unfamiliar dynasties. Sophia's family couldn't even afford a proper packaging fee. They had neither power nor wealth, so poor that even her formal dresses had to be borrowed. But fate handed her a one-way ticket to Russia. At the time, Elizabeth of Russia was looking for a suitable bride for her nephew, the heir Peter III of Russia. She wanted someone obedient, without a powerful background, and unlikely to interfere in politics. And Sophia fit perfectly. At the age of 15, when Sophia left Germany, she didn't cry like other girls. Sitting in the carriage, she stared out at the snowy plains. She understood clearly. This was a career transfer, and the name of her new company was the Russian Empire. When Sophia arrived in the frozen lands of St. Petersburg, she faced a vast empire that was deeply conservative, xenophobic, and steeped in religious tradition. Russia was in a transitional phase yearning for westernization, yet deeply suspicious of outsiders. Her husband, Peter III, became her first nightmare. Though he carried Romanov blood, he was an extreme admirer of Prussia. He openly humiliated Russian soldiers, mocked the Orthodox Church, and even spoke only German in public. Catherine quickly recognized a fatal perception problem. If she acted like a proud German princess, she would be hated alongside her husband. But if she could become more Russian than the Russians themselves, she could become the empire's hero. So she began an 18-year undercover phase. To learn Russian, she would walk barefoot on cold floors late at night, memorizing vocabulary. She eventually developed severe pneumonia and nearly died. But when the story spread, it won her the hearts of the Russian people. Look, that German girl loves our language more than we do. The entire court was moved. They saw someone willing to risk her life for their country. She abandoned her original faith, converted to Orthodoxy, and took the name Catherine, Ekaterina. Kneeling in church, she appeared more devout than the most pious clergy. While Peter III played with toy soldiers and abused animals in the bedroom, Catherine studied in her library reading Voltaire, Denis Diderot, and Montesquieu. She was building her own framework for ruling from the ground up. During those 18 years, she endured her husband's cold indifference, her mother-in-law's surveillance, and the suffocating loneliness of court life. Like a sponge, she absorbed every piece of data about the empire. Who controlled the army? Who managed taxation? What did the people fear the most? She wasn't just surviving, she was preparing for takeover. In 1762, Peter III of Russia finally ascended the throne. What followed was practically a textbook case of catastrophic incompetence. At that time, Russia was on the verge of completely defeating Prussia in the 7 Years' War. Yet Peter, out of admiration for Frederick the Great, abruptly ordered a ceasefire and returned territories Russia had already conquered. This wasn't just political suicide. It was like stabbing the Russian military in the lungs. Russian guards had been bleeding on the battlefield, while their emperor was busy polishing the enemy's boots. In the early morning of June 28, 1762, the moment came. Catherine the Great learned that one of her co-conspirators had been arrested. She immediately realized, seize power now, or be imprisoned tomorrow. Wearing a borrowed guard's uniform, she rode out into the streets of St. Petersburg like a war goddess. She gave no speech. She simply looked at the furious soldiers with unwavering determination. At that moment, the system switched hosts. The soldiers abandoned Peter III, the emperor who barely spoke Russian, and proclaimed Catherine as empress. The coup saw almost no bloodshed because Peter discovered a brutal truth. Not a single person in the empire was willing to draw a sword for him. After taking the throne, Catherine faced a mess financial chaos and unstable borders. She not only had to secure her rule, but also deliver results to silence doubters. Her KPI was brutally simple: territory. Her strategy toward Poland was strikingly modern, what we might call capital-style encroachment. She first backed her former lover, Stanisław August Poniatowski, to become King of Poland. Then, exploiting internal religious conflicts and noble infighting, she gradually weakened the state. Finally, she teamed up with Prussia and Austria to play a division game. Through the partitions of Poland, once a major power in Eastern Europe, vanished from the map for 123 years. Catherine secured the richest and most strategically valuable Emirati closest to Europe's core. Her wars against the Ottoman Empire became some of the most glorious chapters in Russian history, and the campaigns that cemented her legend. She not only seized Crimea, but also ensured that Russia gained the right to navigate the Black Sea. This marked a turning point. Russia was no longer just a landlocked giant hidden in ice and snow. It had become a major player in global maritime power politics. During her reign, Russia expanded by over 600,000 square kilometers. If Russia were a corporation, Catherine would be the ultimate head of global expansion. But Catherine understood something crucial. Military power alone was not enough. You also had to control the power to define civilization. In the age of the Enlightenment, intellectuals across Europe were discussing freedom, democracy, and reason. While Catherine maintained a harsh system of serfdom in Russia, she mastered the art of branding. She launched what could be called a money-powered PR campaign. She financially supported the struggling Denis Diderot, bought his entire library, and even hired him back as a librarian, prepaying 50 years of salary. At the same time, she corresponded frequently with Voltaire, discussing freedom and human rights. Voltaire, in turn, praised her across Europe, calling her the Semiramis of the North. The effect of this propaganda was astonishing. When Catherine waged wars in Poland and Crimea, European intellectuals actually believed she was spreading civilization and progress. This was 18th century cognitive warfare. She used the pens of intellectuals to gild her iron cavalry with a golden sheen. Catherine the Great's private life has been surrounded by countless rumors over the centuries. But if you take a closer look at her romantic relationships, you will find that she was actually selecting her core partners. Her most famous partner was Grigory Potemkin. What they shared was not just chemistry, it was a resonance of power. Potemkin was not only her lover, but also her ally, commander, diplomat, and governor of the South. He helped build Sevastopol and played a key role in establishing Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Catherine never gave up power for a man. On the contrary, she turned these men into extensions of her power. When a relationship ended, she would generously grant them land and wealth, ensuring they remained loyal to the interests of the empire. Domestically, Catherine was far from a gentle grandmother. When the Cossack rebel leader Yemelyan Pugachev claimed to be the surviving Peter III and attempted to overthrow her during the Pugachev's rebellion, Catherine revealed an extremely ruthless side. This was not mere suppression, it was physical erasure. After Pugachev was executed, she ordered the renaming of related places, attempting to delete the rebellion from collective memory. At the same time, she was also a reformer of law. She personally drafted the famous Nakaz instruction, attempting to implant advanced Western legal principles into Russia's harsh and underdeveloped system. Although the effort was ultimately limited by reality, this kind of top-level design gave Russia's bureaucratic system its first outline of modernization. In 1796, this legendary empress died in the Winter Palace. What she left behind was a powerful, expanding super-empire one that held a decisive voice in the cultural center of Europe. She once famously said, "If I could live to 200 years, all of Europe would lie at Russia's feet." She never reached that age, but she did achieve the ultimate level of a cross-border takeover, a fallen German noblewoman who became the guiding force of the Russian nation. She didn't need to erect a blank stele like Wu Zetian. Her achievements are engraved across every inch of Russia's vast territory and along its deep blue maritime outlets. She transformed herself from a Cinderella of a minor principality into the mastermind behind a transcontinental empire spanning Europe and Asia. During her 34-year reign, she not only expanded Russia's borders, but also dragged a backward empire, still smelling of soil and vodka, into the elite social circles of the Enlightenment. With the cold logic of reason and the warmth of human understanding, she mastered both geopolitics and the game of human nature. In an era dominated by kings and generals, she wasn't running alongside them. She was leading the race.